Hey, it's Remington. You're in for a treat for this next interview with Kathy Chiero. Kathy has developed a niche product, specifically an event that helps people downsize, both downsizing your parents or if you are at that age where you need to downsize, and it's equipping you with all of the things you need to know in order to downsize. And she goes into how this event went from 200 people at the first one to now 8,000 people in her database. And she hosts 2 of these events a year. They're like epic, like $40,000 events. She gets paid for by vendors. It's a resource, and 20% of her sales that year are directly linked to this event she does, not to mention the free advertising she gets. It's phenomenal. It's a great resource. And if you're in a major metro, this is something that you could do immediately to boost your sales. Enjoy. Back to the show. I'm your host, Remington Ramsey. We are seeing massive success because you are sharing this with your friends. We are top 5% global podcast with real producers, and it's because of guests like Kathy Chiero. Kathy is in the Columbus market. She had the unique experience of actually seeing our second franchise launch with Bobby Wright. She has been in the industry for 28 years. At the height, sold 230 homes in one single year, even post-COVID, even though numbers are down. Her numbers are up. 120 homes sold with 45 million just last year. And she has a unique niche that we're going to get into. Welcome to the show, Kathy.
Thank you, Remington. Happy to be here.
So you created this event. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I geek out over events. Is half of what I do is throwing events. We've got a national event we're working on, and so I've got a ton of questions on how you accomplish this. But essentially, the story goes, you and I'll let you tell it. But as a downsizing expert, you created this event to generate leads. And if I recall, you said you had 600 people at the first one. Is that right?
Remington, what we did was I was about 15 years into my career. I had already built a pretty solid database and client base on seminar marketing, meaning doing home buyer seminars, home seller seminars. And coming out of Columbus's recession, which was 2005 to 2012, I recognized that we probably had a lot of older homeowners who had hesitated selling their homes, even though age was coming along and they were tired of mowing that lawn. But our values in Columbus, Ohio during the recession were down double digits. And so I thought, let's do a seminar for those homeowners as values are coming back. And let's do just for downsizing homeowners. Literally on a napkin at a Panera, I wrote DownSize Columbus, got on my phone, bought the domain name, and thought, let's see where it goes. So my background is radio and television. I bought some radio and television advertising, threw it on my credit card, hoping it would work. Got a room that fit 200 people and would have been thrilled if 50 showed up. We ended up filling up that room 3 times, having to do one in March, April, and May of 2013 because the response was overwhelming. And I thought, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I said, boy, there's a niche. Nobody else is doing it.
Downsizing Columbus. You wrote it down on a napkin. What were you already working with seniors at the time? Was that where you were developing a niche, or was that?
No, I would love to say I was brilliant enough to see the train coming down the track. Part of it was I was approaching that age, but I have done it now for going on 13 years, and I've learned so much about that niche. It's funny, the National Association of Realtors just did a big headline in their news bulletin about the silver tsunami, this growing number of baby boomers needing to sell their homes. So they are discovering what we discovered 13 years ago, that this group is an ignored niche. It's a valuable niche, and they are also an invisible niche. They not just in home sales, but in marketing in general. Wall Street and marketing have left them behind, and they're looking for that group that will recognize the consumer as a valuable one. And certainly as a realtor, they all own homes. Statistically, they have not sold a home in 21 years. They don't remember who their realtor was, or they have not heard from their realtor in 21 years, and they're looking for that expert to step into the niche and help them sell.
All right, so let me break this down. On this show, we don't just breeze past some of this stuff. I like to dig in and get into the nitty gritty because that's when I think we really learn. So you said they statistically haven't sold a home in 20 years. Who is they? Who are you defining as they?
That is the downsizing demographic, which we identify mostly age 55. We have 40-year-olds come to our event, but they're usually bringing their parents. Mostly it's that over 55 on the young end, and we have them come in on walkers in their 80s. And the vast majority of that group owns a home. They own a home, and they've owned it statistically an average of 21 years.
All right, so you decided to create this event and you're throwing it for the consumer. This is not for other realtors. Do other realtors attend it?
They do. We welcome them. We normally have, we just had an event last Sunday. I believe we had 4 realtors there. They're usually kind and ask permission to come and observe. And I say, fine, come on in. We have lenders who come to kind of see what we're doing. But yeah, we own the brand in Columbus. So
you always allowed other realtors, or early on did you try to keep it under wraps?
No, I've always allowed them because I knew between you and me, I know what I pay to do these events, and I know most realtors won't spend the money. So I knew that we jumped in the market with a huge event. We took a huge risk to do it financially. And I just know realtors, I know that they're going to come in and they'll say, wow, that's a great idea. Let me see how I can do it for free at a library. And so the competition jumped in and jumped out really quick because nobody was willing to put the money into it. I know.
In the meantime, you're getting agents to show up, and that's increasing your relationship with them to where when you have a cross deal, it's a much better transaction. And it's just brilliant. You're right. No one will do the thing. So since that time, your database has grown to 8,000 people, 35 events over the years. You do 2 events a month now, though, right? Like smaller events?
We do 2 big events a year. That's where hundreds of people come. That's where we put our money in. However, what's happened over the years is that we have, through our events, through our social media presence, through running, keep in mind, as we go into these events twice a year, we have 2 weeks of radio and television advertising where I'm on the air advertising it. So we have that sort of big blast of publicity. Now I'm also very active on social media, posting. We post the event ourselves. I'm always highlighting my downsizing homeowners. I'm going to be starting a podcast just for downsizing homeowners. So what's happened over the years is now most of your listeners may not be aware, but in their community, if they are in a top 25 market, they have in their community these really high-end retirement centers. It's not your mom's nursing home anymore. These are 5-star retirement centers for whom every new resident is worth 6 figures to them. So what they're looking for, the things that they want is they want their database, not mine, their database to visit the community and eat their food. Those are the 2 biggest draws into these communities, location and food. So what they do is they call Kathy Chiero and say, would you come do a lunch and learn at our location, our gorgeous location? And then that gives them a reason to invite people in. Kathy Chiero is going to be speaking on the value of your home. Kathy Chiero is going to be speaking on the reluctant spouse. Kathy Chiero is going to be speaking on what to do with all your stuff. And so that attracts 50 to 75 people to their community to eat their food because it's a lunch and learn. They don't charge me anything. I hand out registration. I walk out with 40 people who have said, I'm going to be selling my home and I want to meet with you. So I do those. I think I've got 6 of those lined up in the next 2 months because this is their season to get people in.
When you say top 25 market, you mean nationwide? Columbus is in that?
Yeah. I'm going to say if you live in a city of a 500,000 or more, you have got these communities, and all you've got to do is pick up the phone and call their marketing people and say, I specialize in this group. Here are topics that I can talk about. Would you like to collaborate on a lunch and learn? And then they send out the postcards, they invite their people. All you do is show up to do it. So now I'm on a regular calendar. I do at least a dozen of those a year. And out of each one, I'm going to guess we set up 2 or 3 appointments after each one with people who need the Remember, they don't know their realtor. They've lived in their home 20 plus years. And and by doing that, Remington, I have the endorsement of this multi-million-dollar community who has asked me to come in, put me on their postcards, said Kathy Chiero is the downsizing realtor. And so it's an easy sell. They say, yeah, would you please come to our home? And it helps. I look like them. I've got gray hair. I have downsized. I've had to get rid of stuff.
A trusted source. Yeah.
That's right. I always say, trust the gray, they
Well,
trust me.
You alluded to it earlier because, the ignorant spectator in me says, what do you talk about at an event like this every single time? Are you repeating yourselves? Like, how much is there really to talk about when it comes to downsizing? Hey, you're getting older. You don't want to have this much land. Let's just move. But you, in 5 seconds, dispelled that myth with the reluctant spouse. I heard, what do you do with your stuff? And then I started thinking about it. I was like, whoa, I bet there's 20 to 30 different things that you could talk about. I mean, that podcast would be, it would go on and on forever, just like Dave Ramsey. Like, how much is there to talk about money?
Right. Remington, great point. And it is a yes and no question. Number one, early on, I sat down because I had to learn about this group. And I naively thought that their real problem was selling their home. But selling a home when you downsize is completely different from going up the ladder. You're not looking for schools. You're not looking for size. And quite frankly, many of these people don't want to sell their home. But aging is a train coming down the track that's going to force that decision in one way or another.
Is that the main objection that you find when you're talking to these people, is that they're reluctant to sell because they don't want to? They
Correct.
Like their house?
Correct. Everybody loves their home, and nobody wants to admit that I can't climb up the ladder. I can't get the Christmas decorations down. In Ohio, we have basements. I'm afraid of falling down stairs. So we identified 5 areas that were specific concerns of the downsizing homeowner. Residential, which I deal with, and that changes every season because we're going over the market. Legal, who do I leave my house to? Do I put it in a trust? What are those things? Financial, how do I buy that house? Do I pay cash? Do I pull money out of my 401k? Medical, what are the signs that I need to start looking at that? And then emotional, getting rid of stuff. That's a huge deal for this. It's getting rid. Well, we've got a whole separate LLC now. I wrote a book. Should have brought one with me. If I was a good marketer, I would. I wrote a book called Got Stuff, Get Help. That is a Central Ohio-based resource just for getting rid of stuff. And I've sold 1,000 copies of it. Is
part of that not just junk haul? It's also, I'm guessing, like selling the things.
I have 5 categories in the book: sell, donate, move and store, organize, and junk. And so it gives people a Central Ohio resource for who will help them get rid of their stuff. Now, again, Remington, it's an expensive business card is what it is. It gets me in the door. I leave them with a copy of that book. It's endorsed by one of our former speakers at DownSize Columbus, who was the former host of the TLC show, Peter, this is terrible. I remember, but anyway, he had a TLC show for cleaning out homes. He wrote the forward for us. So you sit at a dining table, you are a big deal because you have this event. You wrote this book. It's endorsed, by this thing. It's a sharp looking book. So
you give the book away at your seminars as well, like to all 40 or 200.
We sell them at our seminars and we sell them online. But we give them away if they invite us into their home for a listing appointment. So we get in, we give them a book, and I go over with them. That's another thing about this group is many times If you are a realtor saying, I'm going to only do an event if I sell 5 homes, right after the event, this is not for you. Downsizers are planners. And so they're coming to the event in 2025. Some are ready to sell. Many are saying, well, my son graduates in 2026. My daughter's getting married next summer. My retirement is 2 years away. So they're looking for a consultant to help them plan that out. So you come and you give them a plan. You are part of that plan because ultimately they're going to sell their home, but you have to have the resources for them to begin to answer all their questions. And that's where the partners at DownSize Columbus come in. We have 30 vendors who show up. All of these vendors, number one, they pay to be there. My events cost between $30,000 and $40,000 per event, but they are paid for by corporate and sponsorships and vendors. I actually make money on the events.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to break this down because so it costs between 30 and 40,000. Now you're bringing in vendors. You're 13 years into this. So I want to talk to you about the first one before we come back to that. The first event that you did had, you rented out a 200-person room, hoping to get 50. You maxed it out and did it 2 more times, having a total of 600 people in that first year. What did that first event look like? And walk me through the time between writing it down on the Panera Bread napkin and actually hosting the event and all the pain points. Because this is what's interesting. I'm going to listen to this podcast. I'm a realtor in Nashville or Indianapolis, and I'm going to have some ahas from this. And I want to be the Kathy Chiero in Indianapolis. So then I think, okay, I'm going to do these events. And then I'm like, I have no idea where to start. But I'd like to give that gift to the listener. So tell me what happened from the time you wrote it on the napkin to the time you got that first one.
Great question, Remington. And it is. So the first thing I did was I said, what do the downsizers want to hear? And I got advice from various people today. Just go to ChatGPT and ask. But the basic thing was they wanted financial, legal, residential, mental, and emotional. So then I said, what are the experts in all of these areas? And I'm sorry, let me back up. The first thing you do is set a budget. And the budget is, what does advertising cost? What does your venue cost? And what are the graphics needs cost? The way I did it was deciding how much I was willing to risk on a credit card and never get it back if nobody showed up. And I said, I will go 20 grand in because I think people will show up.
And that is a leap of faith for the first year.
Well, I knew, again, my background was in radio and television. So I knew what radio cost. I knew that was the way to reach this older group. At that point, I knew if I could get on the Rush Limbaugh station, I would get the over 55 talk radio group. And so I got that budget together. I talked to my sales guy in radio, who's still my sales guy, said, give me a budget for 3 weeks of good saturation radio advertising. And then I said, let's go find a venue, found the venue, got that cost. And meanwhile, I knew my ceiling was about 20 grand. I knew that was my tolerance for what I would risk.
Does radio still work, by the way, radio and television?
Absolutely, it does.
Do you see a time where that will no longer work because the people turning 55 are no longer on radio?
Yes. And actually, we've changed with those times. We now we do social media advertising. In fact, my assistant just sent me all the breakdown of where my audience, where the DownSize Columbus attendees come from. And I don't want to pick up my phone and look at it. But statistically, radio is still about 20% of who.
I'm just wondering if as people age, if they go back to some of these other mediums, like, I watch things on my phone, but then when the game is on, I go back to television. So during sporting events, there's definitely a higher uptick of people watching television. And I just wonder, as you age, if you find different mediums to be more effective. It sounds like you're still there, but also, pouring into the younger.
Well, we're back at you asked about the first event. So the first event was just radio initially. And remember, this was 2013. So we're talking 12 years ago. So we just did radio that first year. And then we got a venue and, where we were going to do it. I learned that the graphics. It can be, but hotels are very expensive and you're competing with weddings and things on weekend. We found locally, we have some spectacular community centers that are really gorgeous, that have great parking, everything on the level coming in. We've done it at a few venues. We started, our first event was at a very, very nice community center, but we outgrew it. Their biggest room was 200. So that first year, I kind of thought of all these categories, and Remington, this is where sales comes in. And quite frankly, this is when I'm speaking to other realtors, their eyes glaze over because I'm requiring them to do some work. I had to get on the phone and call my builder reps, call my auctioneer guy, call my title company, call my attorney, my financial planner.
To be there?
To be there and to pay to be there. I had to say.
So on the first one, you wanted vendors to pay.
Oh, they absolutely paid. And I said, this is the cost. And they said, well, I don't know, Kathy, is anyone going to be there? And I said, I don't know. Well, you trust me on this. And I had to, barter on my reputation as a realtor. And that first event, we had 3, what we call stage speakers. I'm not a great numbers person, but I think they each paid like $1,500 to stand on the stage. And then that first event, I got 16 vendors to pay me $800 to $1,000, I think, to be there. So the first event was break even, or I might have paid a little, but let me tell you what happened. Those radio ads started, and that in 3 days, 200 people signed up.
Okay, so how did they sign up? How did they RSVP?
You're embarrassing me because I have to tell you the truth.
This is great. This is what people are going to remember because you've come so far.
We didn't have a website yet. I didn't know any better. They were calling my cell phone, and I was writing everything down the first year. And then I thought, wow, we have an entirely different problem now. So then I went to all my vendors and said, look, we've already got 200 people signed up. Could you do one in April? And they all said, yes, no charge, just be there. Then we filled up that. Then I said, whoa, we've got another problem. Could you guys show up again in May? And they did. And so then we had to call an end to it because we were all in the real estate business. We had to sell. But here's the amazing thing, Remington, is that remember the the listener is responding to that radio ad. Who else is responding? Every advertiser who wants to meet that group is calling me up saying, look, we just heard about DownSize Columbus. How do we be involved? We sell hearing aids. I'm a travel agent. I help people organize their houses. We're a junk hauler. We're a mover. Can we be in your next event? Well, overnight, the next event had 30 vendors. And then, okay, all of my legal, financial, all those people, they said, hey, we are in. You tell us where to be and we'll do the next one. Then all of your realtors are probably familiar with the home equity conversion mortgage, which is an over 62 mortgage. Well, we happen to have here in Columbus, Ohio, the nation's #1 provider of that mortgage. They heard it on the radio, and they came to me and said, give us a number. You tell us what it costs to be in front of that group. We will be your corporate sponsor. And they have been our corporate sponsor for over a decade. They give us, that corporate sponsor alone gives us $7,500 per event. Now we have $7,500 per event corporate sponsor. We have what we call silver sponsors, which are the people who get primary seating. They get on our brochures. They're on our ads. They pay $1,500, $2,000 a piece. All of our tables are $1,000 a piece. So now I walk out of every event with an excess, and for that money, I brand for the next event. I buy boxes with Kathy Chiero. I buy bags with Kathy Chiero. I do new banners. I do posters. I do graphics. We buy more radio. We bought social. Moving forward now 15 years, this year we spent about $600 on well-produced, I don't do it myself, well-produced, well-targeted advertising, social media advertising. We had, I believe, 91 people sign up just from that. So
so cheap.
Brand new. Yeah. Brand new people. And now
what's the radio ad by in comparison?
It's about $10,000, $11,000. But
For
again,
how long is the run?
it's 10 days. We do it about 10 days before the event.
$1,000 a day to run. And what's the guarantee on how many times it runs in those 10 days?
It depends on the station. We still do our AM station, but we also do, we now do the number one station in our city is the country music station, which again, your demographics skew older. We advertise there. And then we also advertise on the 80s, 70s, 80s rock station, the station that, again, anything that skews 55 and over, we are there on that. But we're also doing more streaming advertising. I have a buyer who does this for me. The buyer just sits down and says, okay, here's our group. Here's who's listening. And then he does the buy. I set the budget. I think the budget was $12,000 and they usually spend 10 or 11,000 in that advertising. But here's what else happened. We had another corporate advertiser step up somewhere along the way and said, look, I will buy, it was another mortgage company stepped up and said, I will buy television for you. So we have one corporate sponsor who just buys on the morning talk show for a local CBS affiliate. And so we're on in addition to running commercials again. And here is the value of it. Who's on those commercials? Me. My face, my name, my radio advertising paid for by someone else.
Likability factor.
Right. So if nobody showed up at the event, I've gotten $12,000 worth of advertising.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay. And I know we're going a mile a minute, but I'm okay with going back and forth to like the first one to now. I'm okay. I think we're doing a good job of explaining what the difference is, but go back with me one more time to that first event. You are physically, people are calling you, you're physically writing down their names and info.
I apologize for that, but
I think it's a great part of this story.
I thought we were going to get 20 people. So
yeah. So I mean, by the 50th one, you're like, what's this spreadsheet?
System? Yeah.
But I've ran hundreds of events. On that first one, an hour before the event, tell me how you're feeling and wondering if even though they called you and told you they're coming, if you're nervous that even a single person is going to show up.
Always. I'm still like that. I still have anxiety of I'm throwing a big party and will anybody come? But yeah, this group is great. First of all, they always show up early. so yeah. we you
don't have to sit in it long.
We don't worry very long. They're usually
the opposite of realtors. Let me tell you that. They make me sweat.
Let me Remington share a few mistakes I made that first time. Number one, we very quickly after that first event developed a website that required registration because I ended up with 600 people that only their name at that point and phone number, maybe their email, I don't remember. But one of the mistakes I made was not preparing for that onslaught. And so we very quickly developed a website where in order to register, people have to give us their name, their physical address, their email address, and their phone number, which they do. So that becomes our database. The other mistake I made is that I, at that point, was an individual agent, and I just could not keep up with the follow-up. I mean, you can follow up with 25 people. You can't follow up on your own with 600 people. And so it took me a couple years to put a team together. Now I have a paid ISA. I have an event manager because the key to this, I was naive again, and I thought I'm going to do this event. And then a year from now, when someone wants to sell, they're going to remember that I did this event and they're going to call me, and they don't. They look at you as an event planner. You have to constantly reinforce to them that you are a realtor and that you are there because you sell homes. So all of our graphics, all of our follow-up, everything. And we had to put a system in place that just registering wasn't enough. We then had to have a good CRM in place to be able to phone call, text, email, get them in a database. So at least a dozen times a year, they're hearing from us. By the way, on our mass emails that we use, we have a 44% open rate. So that means that our database still sees value. They don't get emails from us unless we're offering them something. We have another seminar coming up. We have free something. We are participating in a shredding day this Saturday. My team is. So everybody got an email inviting them to bring their stuff to shred. So this group has learned that we do not spam them. If they're hearing from us, we are offering them something of value.
All right, let me ask you quick questions around the mind of a person who attends one of these events. Well, real quick, let's speed up to today now. You host one of these events. You're bringing in tens of thousands of dollars from vendors. You're not only coming out on top from the sponsorship to help support the next one, but also the 8,000 plus person database that you've now gained and sold homes. I'm guessing you don't know this number. Do you know how many homes were directly sold from people who've attended the events?
I know that it is about a little over 20% of my gross commissions every year. And I make well into six figures, and DownSize Columbus is either they directly came to the event or they were referred by someone who went to the event is over 20% of my income.
All right. So the mind of someone who shows up to this event, let's just, when's the next one?
September 14th.
Okay, so September 14th, you start guerrilla marketing 10 days before, but until then, are you still peppering social media and emails, letting people know this early?
Yes. In fact, if we just had an event last week ago Sunday, so I don't know if our website's been changed yet, but it will be.
You do them on Sundays?
Yes, Sunday afternoons, because we're in Ohio and nothing competes with Ohio State football on Saturdays. And also venues are more expensive on Saturdays because you have weddings and things like that. So,
well, I was wondering if you would do them on weeknights.
We've tried them on weeknights with mixed success. We usually get a younger group on weeknights because your 40 to 60s are still working. So they'll come, but we've only done it once. And quite frankly, I don't remember. The outcome must have not been great because we went back to Sunday afternoons. But we, between now and September, remember, I'm still doing all these mini events. I'm speaking at retirement centers. And in addition, we do virtual or in-person seminars at least once a month. So there is always something to invite someone to. This Saturday, we have the shredding event. May 13th, one of my team members is doing a seminar on purchasing land. On June 10th, one of my team members is a former home inspector. He's doing a seminar on home inspections. By then, we will have more events almost every month. So we're always inviting. And then always in that invitation, we are, if it's in person, we're handing out information on the DownSize Columbus event. On Thursday, day after tomorrow, I'm speaking at one of these retirement centers. Well, my PowerPoint that I will bring, it advertises DownSize Columbus coming up. And so we end up with a considerable number of our people coming because they were invited sometime during the year at one of these events. We usually have quite a few repeat attendees. They come again and again. Now, this is good and bad. Some of them we call adult trick-or-treaters, meaning they come to anything free that you do because they pick up all the vendor items. That's okay. We know them all on their first name basis. They've come enough. But there is
adult trick-or-treaters. I love that.
Yeah, there is this other group who comes 2 or 3 times who tell us, I get something. I'm at a different stage of life every time I come. And so this information is valuable to me in a different way. We love all of them. I don't care why you come. You either are going to sell a home or you know someone who's going to sell a home. And this group does what I call straddles the internet. My age were the first online back, 40 years ago. We had emails. I still have 92% of our attendees have email addresses. Quite a few of them are AOL. So you still have
Hotmail.
Yeah, I'm Hotmail, so I'll be embarrassed.
Oh, that's great.
I'm Hotmail, but no, quite a few of them. They are very internet connected. However, they are still the generation that wants to shake your hand. They want to meet you. They want to thank you. They want to tell you about their kids and grandkids. They want to know you are endorsed by someone they know. And so when you meet them at DownSize Columbus and you are surrounded by over 40 vendors and speakers who are there to endorse Kathy Chiero, she must be good, because all of these people are putting hooking their car to her train.
You know what's interesting is, let's say I'm a 45-year-old realtor, and this isn't necessarily my niche yet, but over the next 10 years, as I age, I start to think about doing something like this. I would think that no matter how much the internet and social media continues to develop in our lives, there will be a real need for hand-to-hand interaction, in-person interaction. And I'm guessing that will never go away. What I am curious about is if the marketing for such a thing will go to almost primarily social media for, like, let's say the 20 years from now, if internet will be completely, even radio will be internet. I mean, right now you've got internet radio. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe you do.
I don't know. I know this group is the largest demographic on Facebook still. The over 55s are still on, so they're easy to reach. They're over 55. Let me address your question about the 40-year-olds. Here's what we're finding with 40-year-olds, and as a realtor, you can connect with this audience. 40-year-olds are the ones responsible for their parents. They are the ones looking ahead saying, boy, if mom and dad don't clear out that house, I'm going to have to. They're the ones going home at Christmas and New Year's and noticing that dad doesn't walk as well, or mom is forgetting things. They are now becoming the watchers of their parents. And so if you are a 40 to 50-year-old realtor, that is your pain point right there. You're going to market to that group saying, look, does mom and dad's house have too much stuff? We can help. Are your mom and dad reluctant to face downsizing? I can help. You can market to their kids, because their kids are increasingly becoming the door that opens this group to come into the events.
You know, if you're listening to this show and this is an interesting topic to you, I would encourage you to check out two of our other podcasts, one with Catherine Ambrose, who I think you know.
I just spoke at her seminar in Florida last week. Yeah, she had me as a speaker on one of her. She focuses on seniors and downsizing, and she speak about DownSize Columbus. Was just there last week.
That's great. Catherine's episode was really good, eye-opening, and she talks about NAR's involvement and responsibility in the whole topic. Isabella Guarino talks about residential assisted living, converting homes that you would not even realize are actually residential assisted living homes just in high-end neighborhoods. That was a really fascinating one. And this is a topic that I think is going to be ever more important. I know we didn't really get into the person itself, but what you're doing is almost in itself a ministry, because there's people who are not realizing they're struggling, and not realizing a lot of their struggles come from just like their daily habits and life within a house that has gotten too big for them. And you're bringing a lot of light and hope to that situation in many cases, I'm sure.
Remington, let me tell you what I get told. I stand at the door to greet everybody that comes in, and then I stand at the door to say thank you to everybody that goes out. Here's what I've heard I always jokingly say that if they could still have children, they would name them after us. They are so grateful that somebody noticed them. I mean, the whole sense of that over 55 group feeling invisible, that nobody cares. And the other thing is, they think they're alone. They're the only ones overwhelmed by this decision. They are the only ones with a basement full of stuff. They are the only ones whose kids have moved out of state. And when I put them in a room and say, look, all of you are here facing the same thing, they are so grateful. And in fact, they'll stand up as they're coming out and want to shake my hand and talk to me and tell me what it meant to them that somebody noticed them. And then the second thing is, when you sit in their homes, and this is where some of you younger realtors need to have some patience. Many times selling their home is in their head way down the road, but they have other issues along the way, and they just want someone to listen to them and say, yes, there is a plan. I can help you get through this. I can give you a person-specific plan for getting through this, because why? I have the resources. I have the people in town, all of whom help with that. And I love the word ministry. My faith is at the core of what I do. And many times these people just want you to sit with them, talk with them. I pray with them at their invitation and when they welcome me to do that, because at the end of the day, I'm in the service industry, which if I do well, ends up in sales. And so my job is to go serve them and say, if I serve you well, I know that at the end of the day, you're going to welcome me into your home to sell it. And that all starts with an event that notices them as people and says, we're going to give you answers to the questions you haven't even asked yet. But because of our experience in this space, we know these are pain points for you and we've solved the problem.
Kathy, this has been super fascinating. I hope everyone's as jacked as I am, because there's so many things that you talked about that apply directly to me when I'm hosting my own events. And I think if you're in real estate, there's going to come a time where you're either attending or hosting or both. And this was just you're a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for sharing.
Remington, let me tell you some resources I have because I'm a giver and I'm happy to share this information. First of all, I do have a Hotmail address. so you can, I've always said that's valuable. Gray hair is a real asset in this industry. But anyway, I am happy to share. I actually have a handbook I've put together that says this is how you build an event. I also have, they can go to downsizecolumbus.com and get an idea of who are, if you're thinking who in my town could do this, look at our exhibitors at downsizecolumbus.com. It gives you all the people who have contributed to this event. And then in addition, I have probably done a dozen Zoom calls with realtors all across the country who have called and said, I want to try this. And I'm happy to get on a virtual call with you and answer questions. I think it is a wheelbarrow of gold to the people willing to pick up the handles and go with it. And again, it's been tremendously successful in Central Ohio.
Before I let you go, I was too enthralled with what you were saying, but I really want to we ask every guest, especially the growth junkies like yourself, what you're reading, because I know you like to travel and you like to read. So what was the best read of last year, or what are you reading right now?
I'm reading right now the book Fight, about the last presidential election, the behind the scenes of the last presidential election. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. I love autobiographies. I love, for example, one of my favorite books I read last year was The Smartest Guys in the Room, about the fall of Intel. And then I love the book about Bad Blood by John Carabula of the Wall Street Journal, about that young entrepreneur in California who sold everybody, Walgreens and everybody else, on her technology that didn't work. So I love business nonfiction, and I love autobiographies.
I've got a couple books for you that I'm going to dig up, because you'll like with those genres. You're going to like a lot. One that I'm reading right now is Fever in the Heartland. Just came out last year. But yeah, thanks for sharing those. I love sharing books. I think it's one of the best resources, regardless of what we're talking about, to continue to grow. Kathy, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, Remington, and please tell your audience to reach out if I can be an asset to them.
We'll put all that in the show notes. If you want to influence who is on the show or what we talk about, please email us at podcast@realproducersmag.com. We'll see you at RP Elevate in September.